All right, check 1, 2. How we sounding? All right, check 1, 2. All right, that looks good. Let's get this thing started. Sweet. Hello and welcome to the Friday afternoon song feedback stream. My name is Zaak Kerstetter. I am an Ableton Certified Trainer. And this is what I do on Friday afternoons is listen to tracks that you guys send me and give you feedback on those tracks. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything set up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be copying a link and pasting it into the chat. And then I'm going to pin that to the top of the chat. So if you have a song that you would like to send to me, you can just click on that link. It'll take you to a spreadsheet. And in that spreadsheet, you will be putting in the link to your song, obviously, your name on YouTube, so I know who is submitting which songs, and then any notes or things you want me to think about as I'm going through and checking out your track. Before we do that, I do want to go over kind of the rules or the guidelines of doing the feedback sessions, I guess. Number one is original tracks only, so no remixes, for two reasons. Number one, I don't want to get copyright stuff. I don't know what to do with that. And number two, if I don't know the track you're remixing, it's much harder for me to tell which is your own original thing and which is a remix. I also would highly encourage you guys to share works in progress. I know a lot of times people don't want to share things until they're fully done and finished and ready to see the light of day. However, I would encourage you guys share things that are not finished, and that way you can go back and actually take any of the feedback that you get from the stream and implement it into the track itself. But if you only have finished tracks that are already released, that's totally fine if you want just looking for feedback. If you are submitting a track for feedback, I would highly encourage you to also give feedback to other people. And that way it's not just me talking into the camera and being a very one-way thing, but that way we can actually create a conversation about the track, and people who are sharing tracks can get feedback from lots of different people, because different people will have different opinions about what works and what doesn't work in your track. If you are going to be giving feedback to people, which I highly encourage you to do, it's good or I liked it don't really count as feedback unless you follow up with why. So why was it good? What about it made it work? And that can be really useful information to somebody who is submitting their track. Other than that, songs will be reviewed on a first come, first serve basis. So I basically go from top to bottom to the spreadsheet. If you would like to submit your track early, you can do so by joining the Discord, and then the link to the Friday feedback stream will be in there, so you can access it basically whenever you want. And so you can just toss a track in there, and then I'll listen to it during the stream. Also, if you cannot make it to a Friday feedback stream, but you have a track that you are looking to get feedback on, you can always submit a track through the spreadsheet, and then I will review it on the stream. And then all of these videos, all of the live streams get posted to the channel, and then you can just check those out and get your feedback at your convenience whenever you want to. But yeah, that's pretty much it as far as kind of how the feedback system works. If you are joining us for the first time, you are more than welcome to send me a track, share whatever's going on. Or we've had a number of people who have been kind of regulars here, so it's really cool to kind of see people's progress over time and different things that they're working on. So okay, the last thing is all styles and all skill levels, experience levels are welcome. So if you are brand new to producing music, I want to hear what you got. If you've been making music for years, I also want to hear what you got. And I think that, yeah, and all genres. So any style you want to make, I'm here for it. So with that all out of the way, one other thing I do want to mention, this is the stream that I do on Fridays. On Tuesdays, I do a just a production Q&A kind of stream. So if you guys have questions, if you want to get into talking a little bit about music production with Ableton Live, all that kind of stuff, join us on a Tuesday stream, same time, 4 p.m. Mountain, which is 6 p.m. Eastern time. Usually I stream for about 2 hours. So we are going to dive right into it. So as of right now, there is one track already in the spreadsheet. So we're going to jump on that. And then as the stream goes on, I'm sure the spreadsheet will fill up more and we'll get some more tracks in here. So we got a track from Gontia that I am going to pull up right now. All right, let me pause that, pull this up here. So this is a remix, but that's fine. So yeah, so we'll check this out and we'll see. I don't think Gontia is in here yet, but usually he is. So hopefully we'll see him in a second. I'm also going to do a quick sound check just to make sure the audio here is working and sounds good. That looks pretty good, I think.
Простужен, закрой небо рукой. Мы не помним, как нас зовут, дорогой мой друг. Проведи меня до дома, мы знакомы до истомы. Кома в горле застрянут, день был слишком натянут. Проведи меня до дома, мы знакомы до истомы. Кома в горле застрянут, день был слишком натянут. Проведи меня до дома, мы знакомы. Ледяных моторов пытается выжать соки, но плесень там не Рокфоров. Я помню тебя другую, без трещин усталых глазах, и больше я не ревную. Меня ждет пустая трасса, от удушья, круги под глазами, наружу равнодушие. Я полон, немного простужен, закрой небо рукой. Мы не помним, как нас зовут, дорогой мой друг. Проведи меня до дома, мы знакомы до истомы. Кома в горле застрянут, день был слишком натянут. Проведи меня до дома, мы знакомы до истомы. Кома в горле застрянут, день был слишком натянут.
Nice. That's a pretty dope track. Before we dive into the feedback on this, I do want to let anybody know who is just joining us. If you would like to submit your track, there is a spreadsheet that is pinned up at the top of the chat. You just click on that, takes you to the spreadsheet, and then you can just put your link in there, and I will listen to your track in the order that I received them. So this is a cool track. I really like the vibe of this. One of the issues is that it is a remix, so I'm not entirely sure which parts of the song are the original and which parts are the ones you put in there. So I'm just going to kind of assume that the vocals are part of the original track, and then you kind of redid the instrumental, and then hopefully I'm correct about that. So first off, I think the vibe of the vocals and the instrumental work together really, really well. I think the instrumental has this kind of like very kind of housey feel to it, and a lot of the vocals have this almost kind of like hip hoppy kind of feel, but also not like, but they work together in a way that I think it sounds really cool. So that's pretty spot on. However, I think the drums are probably the thing that need the most work here. I think even in the beginning here, we have this kick that feels a little weak to me. And it looks like it sounds like it has a filter on it, so it kind of changes a little bit. But I think a bigger kick, and more importantly, a bigger clap. Like here, way, way too quiet. And as far as I can tell, that doesn't really change. I think it's a little louder when the clap comes in, but there's a snare sound over here that is just way too quiet the whole way through. So more emphasis on those kinds of sounds would be really, really helpful. Just make them a little bigger, saturate them a little bit, turn them a little bit. I think that'll solve a lot of the issues I'm hearing with this track. Other than that, I like what you're doing with your percussion. But the percussion does get very repetitive, and so it just sounds like you just kind of a loop of percussion that just kind of loops over and over again. So with your hats and your cymbals and things like that, a little bit more variety in there, a little bit more effort in there to make those kind of stand out, I think would go a long way. And then I really like the halftime section. I thought this section was sick right here. This part was dope. Same thing on this one. Not same thing, but this section, there's a guitar part that's really nice, but it gets a little bit quiet. Yeah, just a tiny bit too quiet. And then I have to say, a lot of the sound design on the synth stuff, it works really well. I think it sounds really nice. I think it's just a little bit of messing around with the drums and a little bit of messing around with the mix, just to make everything sound a little bit more vibrant and a little bit more kind of rich. Will go a long way. But other than that, I think the production sounds really, really quality. I really like the guitars too, and I'm not sure if those guitars are in the original track or not, but the guitars are definitely doing a lot of good work there. But yeah, thanks for sharing that, Gal. I'm still not sure if you're here yet, but I'm sure you'll be here at some point. But yeah, cool track. What's up, Beatmaker? How you doing today? All right, we got another track coming up in just a second. I'm doing really well. It's a beautiful day out today. I'm DJing tonight, which I'm really stoked about. So I'm feeling pretty good about my life. Is this track from you, Beatmaker? I'm assuming it is. Your name's not in the spreadsheet, but it could also be somebody else. Okay, cool. Just checking. don't think there'll be a way to see it. I will probably record it, but I'm not sure if I'll release it. We'll see how it goes. That's dope. I like that a lot. Once again, before I dive into the feedback, if anybody else is out there who is just joining us and would like to submit a track, go ahead and click on the spreadsheet that is pinned up to the top of the chat. So yeah, I really love the vibe on this. It had this nice kind of like groovy, funky vibe. And I think it has this very kind of like upbeat feeling to it. And I think it's really hard to make music that has this really upbeat, kind of happy kind of feel to it, but also not come off as cheesy. And I think you do a really good job of that here. I think you're really kind of nailing that kind of like, oh, it just like feels good kind of to listen to. So I like the vocals. I like how you're like have this kind of like echoey vocal thing. I like that a lot. Works really well with the guitar, or not a guitar, synth. This guy's the guitar. Maybe it's synth, I don't know. Yeah, and then all of the elements right here in this section work together really well. However, I think there's two things that were kind of sticking out to me. Number one is your kick drum. Sounds really good. It has a really nice low end feel to it, but it could use a tiny bit more mid-range. Like potentially just layer it up with another kick that has a bit more mid in there. Like take a listen to it. It kind of overlaps with the excuse me. It kind of overlaps with the bass line. So I think that the bass line is masking the kick a little bit, which makes it harder to hear the kick, which makes it harder to hear kind of the rhythm or the beat. So by adding a little bit more mid-range to your kick, or layering it with a more mid-rangey kick, I think it'll stick out of the mix a little bit more, and that way you can still hear your bass line and then also still hear your kick. What's up, Willie? How you doing today? Excuse me. So yeah, I think a little bit more kind of punchiness to the kick could go a long way. Is that you playing the guitar? All right, and then we have the horns that come in. I absolutely love the horns. I think every song deserves horns or just something like that. Really big fan of that. I'm doing quite well. Glad you're here. If you have a track that you'd like to share, Willie, you can go ahead and link it. Follow the link that's pinned at the top of the chat and toss it in there. So yeah, horns are dope. The horns sound really good here. Love them. More horns all the time. However, when you have the really spaced out horns, you have a bunch of delay on it. And I think the echo kind of fills that negative space between the horn parts. But as the horns get more and more prevalent in the song, the delays end up being a little bit distracting, I think. And see if you can notice that when you listen to it. So here, how when you're listening to the horns here, there's all of those other horns bouncing around in the background that are kind of distracting you from hearing the main horn part. So I like the delays, especially on the horns that are really spacious. But I think as the horns become more and more prevalent, you want to turn down the dry wet and or the feedback on the delays a tiny bit. Not all the way, because they're adding a lot of cool atmosphere there and they're worth keeping in there. But dial it down a little bit, and that way the horns will become a little bit more. The main horn part will be the main focus, and then you have like a little tiny hint of echoing in the background, which I think that'll work the best. A really fun way to do this that I should mention if you are using live is if you have echo, which is obviously a delay, probably the best delay in live. It has a built-in sidechain feature where it sidechains itself to itself under the character tab right here. If you go to ducking and turn this on, this basically will sidechain your delay to your original signal. So when the original signal is happening, it'll turn down the volume of the delay. And then as the original signal goes away, the delay will turn itself up. So it's a cool like internal sidechain way to do that. Or you can just automate them. That also works. But yeah, those are the main things that I was noticing. Those two things: mid-range on the kick. Watch out for the delays on the horns. The rest of it, I think, is super cool. I like this part a lot. Especially like the little like arpeggiated synthy guy you have going in the background. And then the other arpeggiated synth that comes in. Those are working really well. This part, to me, I think you could end the song here if you want to. That's not the worst thing in the world to like end on this kind of cool, weird section. But to me, I was kind of hoping there would be another big drums and horn section or like a horn solo, like a trumpet solo in there or something. Could be like a really cool way to kind of like bring it back a little bit and then really kind of end the song on this kind of like really high energy level. That's personally where I would go with it, most likely. If you want to leave the ending like this, you like having the kind of like weird, just kind of like it just ends kind of thing, that's also cool, and I think it's a cool creative choice. But I could hear this build up back into the drums. Yeah, it's a bummer you haven't been able to work on this, but I think it's a super cool track. So other than that, since you have access to the vocalist, I think you said he was your okay, so you're gonna add more vocals later. Yeah, that was gonna be my other suggestion. It's just maybe a little bit more vocals here and there could be really cool. But I don't think it needs a lot of vocals in there. I think just maybe a verse or chorus could be kind of cool. But the track itself, I think, sounds really solid. Maybe a tiny bit too much volume on the shaker. Turn down a little bit, but that's not a huge deal. Love the bass line too. Love that kind of like funky bass line. Sick. Well, that's a super dope track. Appreciate you sharing that. Chat, if anybody else is out there who has any thoughts, opinions on this track, I'd love to hear your feedback as well. This is a group thing. Everybody is welcome to share their own thoughts or ideas on any of the tracks that are being shared and help each other out, which is kind of the whole point. Sweet. So also another reminder, just because we don't have a lot of tracks in the spreadsheet yet, if you would like to share a track, the spreadsheet to do so is pinned up at the top of chat, and that is how you get in line. All right, we got another track here, and I believe this is from Willie, if I'm not mistaken. Let me know if I'm wrong in the chat. Okay, cool. Just want to make sure. Nice. That is a super cool track. I like this quite a bit. I'm going to kind of go through it chronologically because you had a lot of stuff going on here, and I think you have a lot of stuff here that works really, really well, and just like one or two minor things that you might want to take a look at. So first off, love the intro here. Piano start off real pretty, real simple, real beautiful. I also really like the addition of the bird call noises, and like there's a little bit of white noise as well that gives it this very kind of like natural feel. If you wanted to walk more down that road, I would not mind that in terms of using other either like found sounds, like going out and recording stuff. I don't know if you recorded these birds yourself or you just grabbed some samples of birds, but more nature sounds, different things that help kind of like flesh out that kind of world building you're doing there. That could be really cool. Not entirely necessary, but I think you could definitely take a look at exploring more sampling natural sounds, world around you kind of stuff, and really make that part of the intro. Give it a lot of texture. Like the use of the clock as a percussion tool. One thing that I thought you're gonna do, or that I thought at least you could have potential doing, is since you have this kind of like really rhythmic kind of clock ticking kind of percussion, is that occasionally as the song goes on, start to make it more glitchy and weird over time. So it starts off as this very like time being this very kind of like consistent, regular thing. And then as the song goes on, you start like deleting some and like adding some triplets and reversing some just to make them like a little more kind of like a glitchy IDM kind of thing. That's personally probably where I would go with it, but that's also a lot of the music that I listen to. The snare here sounds a little just kind of generic to me. So I think it needs to be layered up, and then also a little bit more processing on the snare here. A tiny bit of reverb would not hurt, a bit of compression would not hurt. Just kind of make it stick out a little bit more. Right now I think it sounds okay, but it just sounds like you just grabbed it from a sample library and tossed it in there. I think the kick sounds pretty good. I like the big bass line. Gives it very like cinematic kind of feel. Yeah, some Foley sounding snare could be really cool. I just think some layering up. That's something I do all the time when I'm producing my drums, is I'll take 2 or 3 snares that all have different kind of tonal qualities to them or different kind of characteristics, layer them all up together, and then start mixing the volume so I get like the right amount of each one. And it makes all the difference in the world. I think I have a video on the channel where I talk about drum layering early on. And then kind of same feedback here with this little break section here. Love what you're doing with the birds. More textural kind of sounds. If you want to toss them in there, I'd just be in favor of that. All right, so here's my biggest piece of feedback that I have. When the drums come in here, it sounds like you have like a low pass filter on them. And so you were getting the same drum beat, it's just super, super muted. And then over the course of this entire section, that low pass filter kind of fades up. I'm not a huge fan of that. I think in this section, it makes the drums sound really weak and kind of far away. And so I think you're better off with, instead of filtering it out, change the drum beat to make it more minimal or more spacious. It's already pretty minimal. I don't know, do some other kind of processing to it so it still sounds loud, but maybe not quite as intense. And then once you get to like the main drop section, that's when you add in lots of your extra drum layers and extra drum hits and fills and all that kind of stuff and make it sound super huge. I just think the kind of buildup you're doing right now is not transferring the energy from this kind of like low energy over here, or more like minimal energy. You're trying to like go from this, I think of songs in terms of the energy levels. So you're starting at this like more kind of lower energy place, and you're trying to go to the higher energy place, right? And so in between, you want to make sure that's still interesting. And I think the other parts of the song here are interesting, but but the filtered drums are, they're not doing it for me. So I think play around with that, maybe swap them out, something else. If you want to do filtered drums, maybe try like a breakbeat. So it's like, like an old school, drum and bass or breakbeat kind of thing. And that way, like it has more energy, but it sounds farther away, and then it kind of goes up over time. I think there's lots of room to explore creatively there. What's up, Jack? How are you doing today? Good to see you. So you can hear the filter going up on the drums. Love the synth part. And then I love this section here. I like the big kind of future bassy kind of synth sound design you have going on there. I think the only real feedback I have on this section is your bass sound you have. It just does like this big kind of... I think you could add a little bit more grit to that kind of thing, that bass sound. Maybe a tiny bit of distortion, something like that. Or just layer it up with something that has a little bit more mid-range. That could be kind of cool. I like the bass sound now, but I think I want it to sound a little thicker. I think it's getting left behind a little bit because you have these big, bright sounding main lead synth sounds. And so I want the bass to be brought out a little bit more. And I think layering it up or adding a little bit of distortion is probably the best way to do that. Yeah, distortion on saw waves just sounds really good if you get the settings right. What's up, other Jack? We got two Jacks in here now. Yeah, this is a dope track. I'm liking it a lot. The other thing you might want to consider, because of the style of music you're making, especially for this drop section here, is a little bit more side chaining onto your big synth parts. That's something you hear a lot in these kinds of drops. It sounds like you have like maybe a little bit on there right now, but a little bit more probably would not hurt. But yeah, this is a super cool track. I like that it's nice and kind of short and sweet. The arrangement has this really nice progression. It ends on this really high point. The whole thing works really well. I was never bored. So I think the arrangement is working for me. It's just tweaking a few little things here and there. And I think this is sounding pretty good. Chat, what do you guys think? I know a bunch of people have already had some feedback in there, and I appreciate that. But any last final thoughts, questions, comments, ideas? Let me know, or let Willie know. Yeah, no worries, Willie. That's the way I prefer it. I like it when people send me tracks that are works in progress, and that way you can go back in there and really kind of tweak it and dial it in. What's up, Janef? How you been? All right, and then speaking of Janef, we got a track from him. Jack wants to know when we have beer. I mean, I guess you can have beer whenever you want. I suppose that's up to you. If you're an adult, you can make your own decisions about when you have beer. I also want to let people know, it seems like most people are doing it already. If you would like to share a song, if you want to get feedback on a track, the spreadsheet is pinned up at the top of the chat. Click on the link, go in there, and just copy and paste. Do you live where I live? Because that would, I suppose, would be the biggest factor in determining when we get a beer. Oh, nice. Yeah, hit me up when you're in Colorado. Nice. Probability pack is awesome. Dope. Sounds really good. As always, really clean, really vibey. Percussion always sounds really on point. There's a few kind of minor things that were sticking out to me, but we'll kind of go through this one at a time. So to start off, you've got this kind of pad chord progression guide that's going on, and it changes a little bit in terms of which instruments are playing it at any given time. However, it's the same chords over and over again, and it does get a little bit repetitive. So maybe swap up the chord progression a tiny bit, just to make it seem not quite so prevalent throughout the entire song. The other thing is this sound right here. Which one is it? It's that kind of pad sound that's playing those same chords is a little bit loud. So I think you can turn it down in the mix a tiny bit and then also switch up the chord progression occasionally, and that'll make a big difference there. Other than that, there's a section right in here where things sound a little bit cluttered. There's like one too many instruments happening at the same time. I think it's starting right around here. Yeah, right here. And it sounds like there's like some guitar going on in the background. And I think the guitar is just too much for me in terms of like how many things I'm supposed to be listening to at the same time. And so if we're up to me, I would probably get rid of it or save it for a different part of the song where there's less things going on. And it happens this over here as well. Where's the comeback? And it's not as big of a deal over here because it's not competing with the like marimba sound at the same time. So here there's guitar with no marimba. And I think that works okay. And then over here, here the marimba and the guitar is too much at the same time. The other big thing I think you want to watch out for, and I noticed it more over here than I did over here, is you're doing this kind of EDM build without really committing to it. And we'll listen to it right here real quick and see if you can hear. Or is it? It's right here. It's this little snare build that you're doing is number one, too quiet, number two, too short, and number three, nothing else in the song is really representing this kind of like EDM build thing that you're going for. So listen to it one more time. It's like way in the background. And number either 3 or 4, I forget what number it was on, the delivery on that build is too similar to what it sounded like before the build. So I don't mind the build itself. I think the build itself is cool. Yeah, I can definitely tell you're getting some more EDM influence in here, and actually I like it a lot. I think it's working for you. But I think the point of the build, in my opinion, in most situations, is you want to start minimal, and then like you want to build energy, right? So if you are already in this section that sounds like this, there's a lot of things happening. So you're starting from a middle point, and then you're building up, and you're ending at almost the same energy level over here. So you want your energy level to change in some way, and that way the build will stand out and feel like it has more of a purpose. Right now, it's kind of just happening in the middle of this entire section. And I noticed it over here too, but it's not as big of a deal over here, I don't think. So same issue here, it's too quiet. And then when it comes in, the guitar just comes in. So I think more things need to change pre-build to post-build. And then spend a little bit more time there really trying to make it so that when the build is happening, it's the main focus. It's like that's what people are paying attention to. And then you move them on to the next section, which is going to be the delivery on that expectation that you build with the build. What's up, KB Noise? Welcome. I'm stoked to hear what you got. But yeah, those are my main issues there. A little bit too much reliance on the same chord progression, both in terms of volume and usage of that chord progression. The layering of the marimba and the guitar at the same time. I think it should be either one or the other. I like the marimba a lot though. And then these builds. See if you can start minimal before the build, then focus on the build, make the build the main focus, and then have a section after the build that is going to be like, that's where you want people to really like throw down. That's where they're going to like really be dancing to it. So in different styles of music, sometimes you add more layers for the drop or the kind of delivery after the build. And in some genres, you have less layers, and that also works really well. Yeah, I think I talked about this a little bit in one of my arrangement videos that I made. I should probably just make a whole video just on builds because there's a lot of ways to do builds right, and there's a lot of ways to mess it up. There's more ways to mess it up than there are ways to do it right. But yeah, other than that, like I dig it. Everything else like sounds really good. I love the horns in there. Yeah, really, really crushing it on the vibe, which is working really well. Sweet. Chat, any other thoughts, questions, comments, ideas about this track? Let me know. On top of that, it looks like people are putting some more tracks in the spreadsheet. That is great. If you want to go ahead and hit the like button, that's also super cool. Also, fairly recently, the channel got monetized, which is cool. And so if you want to, put a little super chat in there, you are more than welcome to, but that is completely optional. KB Noise, do you judge them if they are oversaturated? Like if you just like, there's just a brick wall of sounds in there. All right, so somebody, Josh, it looks like put a link in the spreadsheet, but it's not working. So Josh, if you are in the chat, go ahead and fix your link because it's not doing the thing. Oh, never mind. It's underneath it. You just took up 2 rows. Josh, you are good. This sounds very quiet for some reason. I'm just gonna turn it up for you guys. Well, KB, the waveforms can be deceiving sometimes, but I know what you mean. Yeah, it sounds real quiet, even though the waveform looks fine. Nice. That is a really awesome track. I'm digging the vibes. It was weirdly quiet. I like even cranked it up pretty loud and it still felt quiet for some reason. But I like what you got going on here. I think the main thing I want to talk about is this section right here, but I'm gonna just make sure I'm not forgetting anything before we get there. Yeah, I feel like it seems like this section right here is the same as this section here, except for this section here is better and has more things going on in it. So I think it'd be cool if this first drop was a little more different. And like, I don't know, I like it a lot when the first drop does the like basic foundational idea for the song, and then the second drop expands upon that idea and makes it either more complicated or shifts it a little bit and does more with it. And you're doing that a little bit right now, and obviously the section's much longer. But I kind of want this first section to be a little bit more different in there, and kind of stand out on its own. Up to you, but I think that would help quite a bit with the overall arrangement, because it does feel like, you know, this is the real kind of meat of the song, and it does take a while to get there. And I honestly think that you could maybe cut off a few bars of your intro and a few bars off of this section, and I also would be totally fine with that. That's kind of optional. Like, this section's cool, but let's talk about context a little bit. I think this is really important to understanding arrangement. Is you have to think about how and where people are going to listen to your track. And this might be a track where your intention is for people to be sitting at home with headphones, just kind of jamming out, listening to this track. However, if your intention is to play this out as a DJ or have other people play it out as DJs, this break section here goes on for slightly too long. If you're going to toss vocals in here, that definitely gives you a little bit more leeway. But if I like say I wanted to play this in a DJ set, I would want to play both drops eventually, but like this goes on for a really long time before you get back into the beat, and you can make that work. But if I'm a DJ, this is a long time for things to be really chill like this. So up to you. I think you can leave it the way that it is, cut it down by 4 bars or 8 bars, and I wouldn't mind that. But I like the section overall, just in terms of how it sounds. And then we get to the main drop, which I like a lot. So I love those little like mini edits to different sounds. I think that's working really well. Also, your snare is too loud for the entire song, I think. Just a little bit. It was kind of like distracting me. It's louder than your kick, which is an issue. And then I love this synth sound. This synth, like this weird kind of almost guitar solo style synth sound. It's crushing it. Really cool. Keep that. And then you do this weird thing over here. If I can have in a second. This section right here. I love the idea of it, but I think it goes on for slightly too long. Let's listen to it one more time. It's like a cool reset. But I think it could be half as long and still be just as good, if not better. And then you do it again. Same thing, half as long. Go right back into here. Yeah, that's a cool idea, but I think it's just like I don't mind the breakdown part of it. Just like this, that it's that one sound. I think just like it's a cool sound, but it's not as cool as your other sounds you have in there, I don't think. So if you're gonna keep it that long, maybe have the sound change a little bit, and that way it stays interesting for that entire time. But up to you. And then lastly, there's that little micro edit you did right there, that little just choppy guy. More little choppy, tiny edits like that, I think would be really cool throughout the entire song. I think those are the little kind of details that I think make or break songs in this kind of style. So more of those little tiny edits will be great, I think. But yeah, that's my main feedback there. I think that I think if you're going to put vocals on this, it's definitely going to change the arrangement a bit and give you a little more leeway to have that kind of longer section before the main drop. But I really like it. I think the vibe, again, vibe-wise, sounds really cool. All your sounds sound really good. All your synths sound really good. It keeps it interesting the whole way through. So yeah, really, really solid track. This one I feel like is a little bit more, it's a little less experimental than some of the other tracks you've been playing, but still like has that same kind of style to it, which is cool. All right, so it looks like we got one more track from Janef, but Janef has already shared a track. So I want to make sure that if there's anybody out there who has not yet shared a track and would like to, go ahead, click on the link at the top of the chat, and that'll take you to the spreadsheet. Toss whatever you got in there, and I will take a listen to it. And if you are enjoying the stream or your own feedback, go ahead and hit the like button. So Willie is asking about improving when it comes to music production. What would be your thoughts there? I'm not sure I understand the question. Like ways I think one can produce at or improve at music production? Is that what you're asking? Just in general? Yeah, we can talk about that for sure. Yeah, Josh, I can kind of tell that this is an older track of yours because your style has progressed a bit from here, I think. But it's cool to hear that. All right, we got looks like a couple of tracks. You guys are pasting them all over the place, which makes my life way more difficult. So this is a fantastic question. So Willie's asking just like, what are some general ways you can become better at music production? Number one, the number one thing you think you can do is listening skills, just across the board. The the people who I know who make the best music and the students that I've worked with in the past who have progressed the fastest, when they're listening to music, they are always learning things. They're always listening to not just does this sound good or do I like this song or do I not like this song, but why do I like this song? What specifically about this song or these sets of songs really inspires me, really makes it a track that stands out? And then just try to figure out what those things are. And they can be really simple, like certain tempos that you really like, certain drum beats that you really like, certain styles of bass lines that you really like. You can learn a lot just from listening to lots and lots of music and really focusing on breaking it down into its most basic elements and learning from that. And I think that's the best thing you can possibly do, like just as a real, just generally basic tip. Kind of along the same lines, listen to a lot of music and listen to a lot of different kinds of music. Like always be hungry for new music, always be hungry, try different styles, try, just go, I go on sound or Spotify binges now where I'll just like click on every single link to a new thing that I'd never heard of before just to like check things out. And it's a really cool way to open up your own musical palette and again, like bring in more influence because if you can understand your influences and understand what you like about music, it allows you to make music with a lot more focus. But yeah, there's a lot of things you can do to get better music production. But I think being a good listener, listening to a lot of music, and then having a wide range of inspirations that you are studying is probably the best thing you can do. But we can definitely talk about that more later on in the stream, especially if we get through all the tracks. But it's a great question. Yeah, I think second thing you can do, Josh had mentioned this, or who was mentioned that? Willie, if you were just getting started making music, quantity over quality, 100%. Make 80 tracks before you ever release one. Make 100 tracks. If I think a lot of people, they focus too much on perfection and trying to they waste a bunch of time trying to make the perfect track, myself included. Just make a bunch of shitty tracks. Just make a bunch of garbage music. It's the best way to get better. And the more precious you are with it and the more you try to make it perfect, the less you grow as an artist and the less you learn. You learn from your mistakes, and you just got to make a lot of mistakes. But yeah, sweet. So we got a track from Brobot next. I don't know who Brobot is in the YouTube. All right, you guys are going crazy with the spreadsheet today. I'm going to try to keep this organized. It's pretty sick. A lot of stuff going on here that I am really, really digging. Everything sounds really big and huge, which it sounds like that's what you're going for this style of music. So I think you're on the right path with that. I think my biggest kind of big picture thing with this is that I want it to be a little bit more danceable, and that may or may not be something that's important to you. But this is definitely more of kind of you stand there and kind of move your head to it. And I want something that has the same kind of vibe as this, but inspires people to move their bodies a little bit more. And I think the number one way you can probably do that is your hi-hat pattern. I like what you're doing with your hi-hat pattern. It sounds really cool. It's doing this really interesting pattern, and it sounds kind of like it's stuttering a little bit. Maybe you're doing some triplets in there or something. However, it's it's a little awkward for somebody to try to dance to it. I am imagining, and at least I'm imagining how I would try to dance to this track. So I wonder if you could leave pretty much all the other elements of your beat the same as it is, and then try swapping out the hi-hat pattern with something that has a little bit more kind of groove to it and is a little bit easier to kind of like move around to it. Yeah, so I think some of the polyrhythms are like it's a little too much. If that's your vibe and that's what you're feeling, if you're like I want to like weird people out with my hi-hat pattern, then go for it. Keep it. I'm all in favor of weirding people out with your artistic choices. Um, However, I think especially in this section right here, a little bit like a little bit less is more with the hi-hats and like still do some interesting cool stuff with it. I think would make the whole thing like really feel uh, like it grooves. It works a little better in this section of the song. Like this, you can kind of feel it grooves a little more because of the change in the snare pattern there. But try swapping out the hi-hats with something that's not quite as frenetic, and I think that that could be really cool. Other than that, I love all these sounds. And I'm wondering, I just using them a little bit. Yeah, I love those sounds. And I like how you kind of like use them throughout the entire track, and they stay interesting because they're relating to other sounds in different ways. The other thing I really like is you occasionally toss in the occasional little vocal sample, like that guy right there. More stuff like that. More of those kind of like hip-hoppy vocal samples will also, I think, just add more character to it and give it this kind of like weird experimental hip-hop meets bass music, but like it's like weird sci-fi, but also kind of gangster at the same time. Yeah, could be super cool. And then I had one other thing. Oh yeah, arrangement-wise, once the big bass sounds come in, you're kind of like in that zone for the rest of the song. And it'd be cool if somewhere around here you had like a little tiny section about like 80% of the way through the song where you got really minimal with it and left like just the drums and like some vocal samples or just some like occasionally really weird sound effect kind of things and no drums. Just a little break, and then you bring it all back in again, and then it sounds really dope. So a little break section somewhere in here. You can just toss it right in here somewhere, and I think that'd be super cool. And then lastly, that bass sound right there, I think is working, but I think that I don't know. I think you could dial that in a little bit more. I'm not entirely sure how. I maybe I'd like need to look at your sound design. I like what it does. Maybe I want like a little bit more mid-range in there. It sounds like a little muffled right now. Let me see if we can hear it again. That one's cool. But that second half of it is not as cool. Like when it first comes in and it's super bassy, I love it. And then it kind of moves up to this more kind of mid-rangey thing, and it's not as interesting. This part's cool. Not as interesting. That one's cool. Yeah, you're doing these really long notes with automation that it sounds like it changes after like a quarter note or something like that. And so just really pay attention to all those sounds and making sure each one of those individual parts of those sounds sounds really, really cool. It's gonna be really important to make this track work. But yeah, really cool. I love the like weird experimental gangster hip hop kind of sound design vibe you got going on here. So really solid work on that. Chat, you got any other thoughts, questions, comments, ideas? Sweet. All right, we got a track from KB Noise.
The price of liberty and even of common humanity is eternal vigilance. The price of liberty even of common humanity is eternal vigilance. Is eternal vigilance. The price of liberty and even of common humanity is eternal vigilance. Eternal vigilance.
Nice. It's been a while since we had some drum and bass on the feedback stream. I think you got a lot of cool things going on here. A lot of really cool sound design. Get a lot of like interesting, unique takes on different sounds that you hear in this genre. However, a lot of them get repetitive. It seems like you have like a collection of a handful of sounds, and you're just kind of rotating between them. And I think that can work for a while, but I think that the arrangement is a little too long. So that means you need either more sounds, so that way you can switch back and forth between more different sounds, or you need to make the arrangement a little bit shorter so that it doesn't kind of like, you're not just hearing, okay, we've heard these sounds before, now I want to hear them in a new context, or I want to hear them relating to each other in different ways. So I think that's going to be your big thing you want to think about, is either a shorter arrangement or more sound design. And I think that's a rabbit hole you can spend a lot of time just making tons and tons of cool sounds. If we're going to be talking a little bit about kind of like workflow and ways to write music, one of the things that I will often do is, some days I feel like doing sound design, and some days I feel like writing music. And on days I feel like doing sound design, I'll just make tons and tons of sound, convert everything to audio, and then save it all into a folder. And then the next day, when I sit down and want to write my song, it's like, boom, I've just got like a huge collection of a bunch of random ass sounds that I made that I can just drag and drop in and start creating a song that way. So that might be something you want to try, is like have sound design sessions and have writing sessions that are not the same time. Because if you try doing both at the same time, you can really kind of lose focus on both. That way you just make a bunch of sounds, make 100 sounds for yourself. Just sit down, just like, okay, here's 20 sounds, here's another 20 sounds, make a bunch of sounds, and then start plugging them in and starting to create your combination of those sounds. Yeah, basically make your own sample packs. Or that might even include like, okay, I made a couple of my own sounds, and then I'm going to go to Splice and find a bunch more sounds, and I'm going to, again, organize them all, and just like, okay, when I sit down to write a song, I have a collection of ideas ready to go. That way I don't need to pause my writing to do sound design. I can just drag and drop more stuff and do little bits and pieces of sound design kind of as I go. So try that out and see if that affects your how you make music at all. Other than that, I also felt like the intro was a bit too long. The other thing about your intro is you have this kind of drum and bass beat going on, but your kick drum sounds kind of like a tom drum, and it might just be a sample that sounds kind of like a tom drum. But if we go over here, yeah, just like it just sounds like a tom drum, and that might be intentional. That might not be. I think maybe a kick drum that sounds not like a tom drum could be an option that would work there. And then your hi-hats are way too loud. And then the other big thing that I'm noticing in this track throughout the whole thing is you have a lot of that really cool, interesting, weird sound design, and then it sounds like you're slamming a bunch of reverb on a lot of it, and that reverb is just eating up tons of space in your mix and is not really helping you. So maybe find some of those sounds that have a bunch of reverb on them, and then tone some of the reverb down a little bit, not all the way, but enough that it's not like these big echoey, reverby, spacey sounds all the time. Yeah, and then it really comes down to getting more of those sound design elements in there, and then creating specific sections of the song where, like, okay, this section of the song, I'm going to use these sound design elements. And in this section of the song, I'm going to use these sound design elements, and make sure that each section, they can go for 16 bars, 32 bars, however long or short you want them to, but they change regularly. Right now, again, it just feels like we have like one really big long section here where things keep changing, but there's no like identifiable A section, B section, C section, whatever. So making sure the different parts of your arrangement, each one kind of stands out kind of on its own. But yeah, I think it's a cool idea. Drum and bass, in my opinion, is one of the hardest genres to produce. Just straight up of any style. I think drum and bass producers are amongst the best producers because it takes significantly more work to make a drum and bass song sound really, really good and really tight than almost any other genre. So good luck with it. Definitely spend some more time down in some of that arrangement and some of that sound design and kind of see where that takes you, because I think you have a lot of cool elements here. Yeah, just across the board, drum and bass is just that's why I really love it when drum and bass producers makes stuff that's not drum and bass, because it's always so good because their technical knowledge of all that stuff is really, really high level. All right, sweet. So at this point, we've gotten through all of the tracks on the spreadsheet except for people that have submitted more than one track. So if there is anybody who has not submitted a track, whether you're joining us recently or whatever, now would be the time to pop your track into the spreadsheet. Otherwise, I think we have 2 more tracks that are from people that have already submitted a track earlier. The first of which is going to be another track from Janef. All right. Nice. So Jeff was looking for feedback on the mix on this. I think the mix is sounding pretty decent. However, the horns sound okay at the start in terms of where they are in the mix. And then later on in the song, as there's more things going on, I think they get a little too quiet for my personal taste. And then I think your chords, this seems to be pretty consistent with you, Janef. The chords, you have this kind of like paddy chord kind of sound going on in the background. A little bit loud, just by a hair. I think it's mostly okay. But if it were to me, I'd maybe a tiny bit quieter on that. I think the snare could also go down a tiny bit in volume, but other than that, I think the mix is sounding pretty good. A little bit more horns over here, a little bit less pads across the board, and a little bit less snare. And I think you're pretty much on the way there. maybe also a tiny bit less shaker, but that's also like really close to being there anyway. But yeah, other than that, I think it sounds pretty good. Production wise, I don't have a whole lot of feedback on here. It's pretty short, so it sounds like this is either a work in progress or it's like part of a larger piece that you're working on. But I think it sounds really good. It's a little bit too happy for me. I tend to like my songs a little darker than this, but you know, that's a personal taste thing more than anything else. But yeah, I don't think I have any other real kind of feedback on that one. All right, then we got another track from Beatmaker. Nice. It sounds like either this track is not done or you maybe bounced it out and didn't get the end of it. But again, really awesome vibe here. I'm really digging the funkiness of it. I think funk is probably one of the most important elements of making music, and you're nailing it here. I love the bass solo. The bass line was really good at first, and then the bass solo like also just really like works really well. Like you don't really get that in a lot of this kind of music. But yeah, production-wise, I think it sounds really solid. I think the only thing that was really kind of sticking out to me that I had questions about was your clap sound. It sounds like it has like a really fast delay on it, or a reverb with a bit of pre-delay. So you're getting this kind of like echoed clap, which I don't necessarily think is the wrong choice, but it did seem like a little bit too much of it for my personal taste. It's like weirdly stereo, so it was like going from one ear to the other. Yeah, it's like it's starting in the left ear and then moving to the right, which again, I don't necessarily think is the wrong choice, but it's just like it kind of caught my attention. Especially during the intro. It's not as big of a deal once the rest of the beat comes in, but during the intro, that kind of like weird panning movement delay that it's doing was a little too much. The percussion is a tiny bit loud in the mix. That part's just so dope. I just love it. It sounds really good. I am wondering if you are planning on putting some kind of vocals or vocal samples on there. I think either one would work. Either like vocal chops could go in there really well, or if you wanted to put some vocalists on there, that could also work, and really just going to be the icing on cake there. I don't think it's 100% necessary, but it's something you could look into. Like this part has like a little bit of like funky, Daft Punky kind of vibes, almost like Giorgio Moroder kind of thing going on. Yeah, I kind of wish as it kind of gets to the end, either like a change in the percussion, like either a new shaker or a new kind of percussive element comes in, or change the percussion that's already there just to shift up a little bit as the arrangement kind of progresses. But other than that, longer arrangement, like I want to hear where this goes. I want to see what you do with it and kind of like see where that takes you. Yeah, that's kind of mostly what I'm thinking here. Listen to that more time. This part's kind of cool, and I want this to lead back into another beat section and kind of just jam out some more. But yeah, sound really solid. Love the funk. Chat, you got any other questions, comments, thoughts, ideas? Sweet. And the next one is going to be the last one that I currently have in the spreadsheet. I do have a little bit more time on stream, so if there are any stragglers out there who have not yet sent me a track, who would like to send me a track, now is the time to do it. If you've already sent me 1 or 2 tracks, the time is nigh for you guys. And yeah. All right, we got another track from KB Noise here. Nice. What's up, Juice? How you doing? So this song is definitely feels a lot more complete than the other song you're sharing earlier, KB. But it suffers from a lot of the same main issues, primarily that the arrangement is too long for the amount of sound design that you have. All the sound design you have is good, sounds really good. You're doing some really cool edits, jumping back and forth between them, and overall it's working better. However, the arrangement did feel like it went on too long, and I think that once again, having really consistent sections of your song, where each section is made up of a specific set of sounds and serves a specific goal or creates a certain kind of atmosphere or feeling or emotion, is going to make all the difference in the world for you. I did feel like the sound design on this was better than last time, the last song, and I also felt like the drum production felt really solid, especially towards the end here. Like this drum beat, that was working for me. That was definitely like on point. With the one exception, your kick throughout the entire track felt a little bit small. So bigger, beefier kick on there, combined with the snare and hat patterns that you have right here, is going to be a really dope beat for this style music. The other big issue that is coming up in this track is you have this big, dark, atmospheric pad sound that sounds like this, that guy, throughout the entire track. And I like that sound, but I think that sound should be reserved for your intro and your outro pretty much only. The rest of the track, when you're doing all this other stuff over here, it's constantly competing with that atmospheric sound, which makes everything else sound really distant and far away and not as important. So if you're going to keep that atmospheric sound, turn the volume way, way, way down on that guy, and that way you can, like, it can still be there, but it's not taking up all this space in your mix. Other than that, I like the use of the follow you vocal. I think it works really well in there, and I think there are definitely occasions where you do a bunch of kind of like glitchy, choppy edits to it, and that works really well. However, that also gets a little repetitive. So you want to make sure that when you have a vocal sample like this, it doesn't overstay its welcome, because as soon as your audience gets bored of it or they get sick of hearing that same vocal sample over and over again, that's bad news for you. So be somewhat sparingly, sometimes a little bit less is more when it comes to vocal samples like that. But I did think that there are certain occasions where you did a bunch of like chopping and editing to it. Where was it? Maybe here. I don't remember what it was in the arrangement, but there are a few points where you kind of like chopped it up, and that worked really well. So just make sure you are being a little bit sparing with some of the usage of the vocal sample. But yeah, really cool track. Like I said, drum and bass is super tricky genre to produce, and so you're going to be spending a lot of time just like really kind of dialing into those details. And I think you've done a lot of the hard work here, and just more sound design, tighter arrangement, get rid of that background sound, give me some more kick drum, and maybe a little bit less vocal sample. in terms of how often you use it. And I think you're going to have a pretty solid track here. Sweet. And I believe at that point, we have now gotten through all of the songs in the spreadsheet. Awesome. So first of all, appreciate all you guys for showing up and hanging out and sending me your tracks. This whole stream wouldn't really be anything without you guys. So thank you very much. I always appreciate. It's scary to share your tracks, especially in a semi-public space like this. But yeah, you guys are awesome. Thanks for sharing your tracks. I'm going to hang out for a couple more minutes in case there's anybody who has not yet sent me a track and would like to. Otherwise, we're going to start kind of winding things down here. No problem. I'm glad to be here. This is one of my favorite things to do. So we're definitely going to keep doing this. I'm definitely going to move the feedback stream to another day besides Friday because I keep on having to do things on Friday afternoons. So probably maybe next month or the month after, I'm going to figure out the stream schedule. And the feedback streams will no longer be on Fridays. They'll be on a different day of the week, probably Wednesdays, but we'll see how things shape up over time. But I will hopefully see you guys back here on Tuesday. Tuesday, I'm going to be doing another Q&A, Ask Me Anything, Ableton office hours. So if you have questions about music production or Ableton Live or anything related to music production, same time, same place on Tuesdays. Otherwise, I will see you back here. I'm not going to be able to do feedback stream next Friday, unfortunately, but otherwise, I'll see you guys on Tuesday. And hopefully you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. If you did enjoy it, please feel free to hit the like button. If you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Share it with your friends, all that kind of stuff. Join the Discord. That is greatly helpful for me. I'm trying to grow the channel little by little, and every little bit helps. Yeah, Juice, thanks for popping by. Did you have a track that you wanted to share, or are you just coming in to say hi? I want to make sure everybody gets their track listened to. All right, well, it seems like I've gotten through everybody. There's nobody else who has a track that they want to share this week. Yeah, no worries. So yeah, I'll see you guys next week on Tuesday. Be safe out there, make some music, take care of yourselves, and yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for popping by.